To me, it's just wild that coaches can go from brilliant to fired in 6 months, 6 weeks, 3 weeks. Welcome back, or welcome to Why Option. I'm your host, Yogi Roth. It is mid-season, and today we are doing like a mid-season checkup. Every one of our conversations here are presented by our founding sponsor, fueling every conversation. That's right, it's 76, keeping you on the go, so you never miss a beat. Jim Thornby comes on back to the pod, this time in front of the camera. He's there every time behind the camera. Jim, we are going today because there are changes. There are midseason changes. We have opinions on that. Penn State, Oregon State, UAB, our dear friend Trent Dilfer. 3 coaches out of a job as we enter week 8, just based on what happened over the weekend. A couple other coaches we know, UCLA's Deshaun Foster. A couple weeks ago, he was dismissed. I called UCLA's game with interim head coach Tim Skipper over the weekend at Michigan State. They're rolling. The Trojans are rolling. We got a lot to dive into. Let's just pause. How are you mid-season, my man?
Good. It's like you said, it's just crazy kind of keeping up with all this stuff because there's 8 jobs, right? Eight jobs now in FBS that are open. I think, is that the new, like every time something happens now in college football, it's like, oh, is this the new reality of this era of college football? Because NIL and portal and everyone trying to figure out the calendar and how all that stuff works. So it's each one of these moves are for somewhat different reasons. I think you can say, obviously, people at different places. I mean, it's not often that a team goes from, preseason number 2 to out of the ranking and out of their coach within like 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks.
They were 3 weeks ago. Like, if the one bounce different in that Oregon game, and we're probably not having this conversation, but that looked like that just killed that. Like that game looked like it just tore the heart out of that team. And then those 2 successive losses. And here we are. I mean, it's unbelievable to, you can, knowing what we know now, not to say that you can understand it because it's a $50 million buyout. Or, what the exact number is. I've seen a couple of different reports on or whatever like that. But I mean, that part alone is crazy. But to think about it, and you think the Penn State fan base, it feels like is just, I don't want to say been waiting for an excuse, but like each time they lose that big game, it's like, oh, we can't do this. We got to get rid of him. No. It's always been that kind of like building momentum to that. Because what is it? They're 4-21 against teams in the top 10, lost 17 of their last 19 against teams in the top 10.
Yeah, only favored in 2 or 3 of those. Yeah, just to provide the context behind it.
So 1-10 against Ohio State, 3-7 against Michigan. All 3 of those wins against Michigan, those Michigan teams were not top 15 teams. However, this is a team that has won 10 plus games in 6 of the last 9 seasons. They went to 2 Rose Bowls. They split those. They lost in the national semifinals in Notre Dame on a field goal with 7 seconds left. I would think that most fan bases in the country would kill for what Penn State has had the last decade. Unfortunately, Penn State is not one of those fan bases. I mean, when it really comes down to it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot to digest here, and we will have brevity because there's a lot to talk about, and also hopefully thoughtful insight. I want to start with this, and I wrote it out because I wanted to get it out accurately. I wonder if buyouts start to disappear. To your point, the amount of money that coaches have to be bought out for if they want to take another job or if they get fired. I mean, it's a two-way street, right? Sign a head coach to a big-time job. Buyout is north of $20 million. They can't leave for their dream job, or that school has to spend a ton of money to get them. And if you decide to fire that coach, you have to pay that buyout as well. That's just how it works. And to me, it's just wild that coaches can go from brilliant to fired in 6 months, 6 weeks, 3 weeks. And to your point, every one of the situations are bespoke. I want to use one of Guy Haberman's favorite words, right? Is very specific to that locker room, to that team room, to that fan base, to that context. But it is hard for me to imagine, like I think of Penn State, not giving the head coach a chance to climb out after 2 weeks ago they're ranked, 3 weeks ago they're ranked number 2 in the country. Thus, it points to things that you must not know, right? Which is like, what are the dynamics going on there? Because I can't look at really any of these scenarios, and they're all different, right? Like, clump UCLA in it. Like, if you look at all of them, you're like, okay, let's make changes at the top or the coordinators, and that will shake out at the rest of these places, whether it's Penn State or Oregon State or UAB. Like that'll impact the staff over the next couple of days as well. It's hard to imagine that the team's better for it. Now, it is the case at UCLA. They look like a totally different team. So again, I just go back to, like, we don't know what it's really like in every one of these locker rooms. And I get it. Let's just start with Penn State. The last 2 weeks have been embarrassing when you look at the standard of not only what Penn State is historically, what the expectation was this year. They decided to run it back, much like Michigan did and Washington 2 years ago, much like Ohio State did last year. And in this era, when you decide to run it back, you have to throw down and pay to run it back. You're the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football. You have probably one of the higher paid rosters. Let's remember last year, in advance of the CFP, Penn State made a commitment to Drew Aller, and Bo Prabula had to leave, which is jacked up, but that was the reality because they had to pay for who are you going to pay for? You only get one of them, and they both want to start, and they both want to play, and they both should play. But I come back to, like, the word patience. And I think for every decision maker, whether it's an AD, a booster, a brand sponsor, like, everybody's got a piece of this thing in college football. Patience doesn't really exist. And it has never existed in college football. Like, if you comped it to the NFL, like, it's a totally different conversation. And I just wonder, like, who's forcing a lot of these decisions to happen? Because I look at the football, and to me, I'm looking at Penn State, and I'm saying, well, what if they did beat Ohio State in a couple weeks? Then, like, you couldn't fire them. So was it about timing, to your earlier point? Or is there something that we don't really know about? And, like, look, the team clearly has not played well the last 2 times out. Do they have to change things and light a spark? Oftentimes when that happens, you see a coordinator change. You see a quarterback change. Their quarterback's done for the season, so you're going to have a version of a spark. So that one, I was shocked by that. My text threads were blowing up in advance of that decision saying, you got to move on, you got to move on, got to move on. I'm sitting there like, 3 weeks ago, he's a batted ball. Like, he's a fumble picked up by Penn State to send a Dante Moore on a bad snap away from the number 1 team in America. And it just seems like in college, I'm like, wow, it just happens fast. And I don't necessarily agree with that. So let me just finish my thought on that, Jim. You make the move, cool. James Franklin is out at Penn State. And now the conversation goes to, who should you get? Let's just say the top 3 names in some form of order: Marcus Freeman, Matt Rule, Curt Cignetti, right? Huge names. They know what it's like to lead programs. They've taken programs to big time heights at a variety of different places. But because of the expanded playoff, Jim, it's near impossible to potentially get any of those 3. They're going to be in the playoff. So now, because of James Franklin being fired, which is a decision in and of itself, I would imagine at Matt Rule's press conference this week and Curt Cignetti's press conference this week and for subsequent weeks, and Marcus Freeman, if you want to put him in, those 3 will have to answer the same question. And then their agents will start to leverage that opportunity and then get an extension and a bigger buyout, or they won't because they want the job. And if they lead a team to a playoff, it's the best thing for the school. You might argue not for the coach if he wants to end up in state college. So there's just a lot of layers to this thing. And I do think that even if Penn State beat Ohio State, even if they came all the way back, if they wanted to move on at the end of the year, they could. They could if they didn't win it all. And if they did win it all, they wouldn't. And they wouldn't be out $49 or $50 million in a buyout. So again, I'm not coming for the decision. I'm not criticizing it because I'm not in the room at all. I'm not in the locker room. But I think it's important to have like a broad perspective on this thing of like, buyouts are insane. My opinion would be, I think buyouts are going to drop. I think they're going to drop because of what the playoff has done and the extension of the season. But here we sit with one of the bluest of blue bloods being wide open in early October.
It's funny you mentioned about like the agent leveraging. You saw the story last week about like people putting out like, oh, Jed Fish would be interested in UCLA. Like,
come on.
Would theoretically Jed Fish be interested in UCLA? Probably, but right now, probably not. Like right now, that is not a better job than what he's got going on at Washington. Sorry, UCLA fans, but it's funny too because I think when you're making a move like this and Penn State stands way far above all these other job openings currently, I think, in this realm of if you're going to get rid of Coach A, you better have a damn good Coach B coming in next year. Otherwise, you just lit $50 million on fire.
Yeah, and I'll say this for Penn State because like I think it's a fun conversation. Like we talk to coaches all the time. And the fun conversation to have is like, would you be interested in this job or that job or this job or that job? And in the conversation, it often goes, I don't know. Could they win there? Do they have all the resources? There's 136 head coaching jobs. There's 60 whatever Power 4 jobs. And of those 60 plus, there's 20 that have it all. And among those 20, there's 10 that have it all. And Penn State's in that conversation. So not many people are turning it down. Like I think like for the Penn State fan, you're going to get a hell of a coach. It might not be Rule, Signetti, Freeman. There are a lot of talented coaches out there. I just wonder like where it nets out because there's so many dynamics. And do you have to have it done by December 1st? You could argue that. You could also argue no. It could be January 1st. Like you could argue it all. Now, there's a lot of arguments both ways. And I'd be curious if you said, hey, wait till January 1 and you can get Curt Cignetti or Matt Rule if they're in the playoff. Wait, right? Or like what is a recruiting class? On one hand, like the offensive and defensive lineman, that is the big deal. But the other positions, it's kind of like where we sit in the world. You can kind of dance in the portal in that regard. So I know enough people that know Pat Kraft, the athletic director of Penn State, and hold him in such high regard. So they'll nail it. But it's worthy of a conversation of the timing of, was it too noisy outside? Like, I don't know, should noise have a lot to do with it? When you're a blue blood, like you just found $50 million for a buyout. Like it's worthwhile conversation is the point.
And I think the thing that what we've learned from 2 years ago in this landscape of coaching changes is you don't want to be the last team hiring the coach. You don't want to be the team when the musical chairs are all going. When we saw Kalen go from Alabama
to unless you're a big time one, unless you're Alabama or Penn State, like you don't want to be the last.
You don't want to be the last because at that point, your players are in the portal and nobody else's are. Yeah,
that's true. Well, there's a 3-day window that kicks off today for Penn State.
Yeah, but like, so you don't want to be like, we've seen what, the Brent Brennan kind of starting behind the 8 ball at Arizona in that regard of, he was the third in that line of hirings. And so like when it was time for him to go out and try and bring in players, those guys have already committed to other places. So it's hard. And like, you're going to come, whoever this next coach is going to be, the expectation for them next year is win. Like there won't be any excuses like, oh, well, we didn't hire him until mid-January. Like, no, like that won't fly with whoever Penn State is hiring.
Do you think though, like from where you sit on the West Coast, and I only say that we both sit on the West Coast, as we know, but I've had a 9 a.m. game every week except week one. So I'm basically an East Coast guy. Right. Now, do you think like Penn State is a job where you've got to go to the playoff next year? Is that how you view that?
I mean, in a 12-team playoff, it's a job where you need to go to the playoff every year.
Okay. See, I don't. Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's at that. It's not quite at Ohio State level where when you don't win the national championship, it's a disappointment. Like, but this was like, it was almost like the joke, like, oh, they expanded it to 12 so that Penn State could make it every year.
Yeah. That's a good point. do you think though, like, why don't you rank? Let's just be brief here because we got a lot to talk about. But best jobs in the Big Ten today. Go ahead. 1 through 5.
Ohio State number 1, clearly.
No brainer.
Probably then Oregon, just based on the momentum and everything that they have going there resources wise. Then do I go Michigan or USC? Both are in that conversation.
4-3, whatever.
And then probably Penn State would be that.
Think about that. Think about that for a second. Like it's the part of expansion that nobody really thought about. Is the point. Like, and to me, I think like 4 getting in is a pseudo lock for the Big Ten, but it's not a 100% lead pipe cinch lock.
Right.
Like, it's all kind of dependent upon like what's the Big 12 look like, what's the ACC look like, what's the SEC. Like, I just think like who plays who, what's the records, blah blah blah. I'm just saying that Penn State is one of the best jobs in all of college football, and in the Big Ten with the advent of these 4 schools, Oregon takes up a lot of oxygen. SC, we wrote about it at Whyoption.com. Like, SC and the Mecca might be back, folks, after the dominating win against Michigan. No, they got to prove it against Notre Dame over the weekend. They win in South Bend, which we're going to get to here in about 10 minutes. Look out. Okay, let's go Oregon State. Trent Bray, he gets let go. And I always go back to something that Ted Robinson taught me, and I lean on this word all of the time. So thank you, Ted, if you're watching. Hope. And you know me, I'm a coach defender as much as anybody. And he said, whenever you feel like you've lost hope or a team's lost hope, that's when you got to make a move. And we've seen those games. We called Colorado, Oregon when Mark Helfrich was the head coach. Ted called it walking out. Like, it's hard to survive that. Arizona, your school gets drilled by Arizona State by like 60 or whatever it was, 70. No hope. Like, it was going to be a move. Tell me, like, you're tracking the Beavs every move. Like, what did you think about that one as they still remain winless on the season?
Yeah, it's funny because I was at that Colorado at Arizona game that was Carl Durrell's last game, and you knew that like, hey, like they got to make a move, and it is like obviously with all the extracurricular is the wrong word, but like all the outside influences that were going on over the last 2 years from the moment that Jonathan Smith took that Michigan State job, with everything going on with the Pac-12 and the uncertainty, it felt like they needed Trent Bray just to keep things together. I don't know, how much of a search they actually did for that job, but they felt like we need Trent to keep this together. And you've seen from the outpouring from former players that they feel that Trent did that.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they've lost 13 of their last 14. They've got their worst start since 1991. And if you remember those Oregon State teams back in that day, like that was like every year was just hopeless. So you got to figure out a way to kind of just get that momentum back. And like, to your point of like shuffling the staff, like they fired the special teams coordinator the week before because that had been like a real weakness on that team. I mean, that Houston game, they had two blocked field goals and they lost by 3. And like, that was like, oh, that game was a heartbreaker. And then they go to App State and, oh, that game was a heartbreaker. And then this game against Wake Forest, like, it was ironic that it was Jake Dickert against Trent Bray that just, not even a year and a half ago, the two of them were on stage together in Las Vegas, like fighting together for the future of the Pac-12. And I think it's just the irony of that. And it was like, they got blown out in that game. Wake Forest had their backup quarterback in. It was just like, where else can you go from that point? Like, making another assistant change doesn't seem like that is going to change the momentum of this program. Now, can they do what Tim Skipper has now done with UCLA? I don't know. I don't know where this team can be right now for the rest of the year, but they got to figure it out. I mean, because 2 weeks ago, none of us would have said that this is where UCLA would be right now. No one in the country would have said that. So, we're going to wait and see. They do have some talent there on that Oregon State roster, but I think they need to figure out a way to just build some buzz back into that program. I think they probably need a coach, a head coach. Their next head coach needs to be someone who has head coaching experience.
Yeah. here we sit, and watching press conference is one of our favorite things to do. Saturday night after a game, or Sunday night late when my kids and wife are asleep, I'm just like watching coaches post-game press conferences, and your heart breaks sometimes. Mine did this weekend watching Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. My heart broke for him because he's a hell of a coach, and they're just not a great team. Trent Bray, your heart breaks. Deshaun Foster, your heart breaks. And when you have two guys, and Deshaun and Trent, who played at the school, their dream was to literally be the head coach at the place they played at. And for it to not work out in less than 2 full seasons is heartbreaking. And I think that Martin Jarman, the AD at UCLA, understood that. Watching Oregon State and Scott Barnes, their athletic director, I watched his interview with John Canzano. Make sure you subscribe if you don't already. I'm sure everybody does. So if you haven't, do it to John's newsletter. It's great. He had a one-on-one interview about it. Like, it breaks your heart. And I think sometimes, to your point, like, circumstances dictated the hiring. Chip Kelly leaves late. They have to figure it out at UCLA. They do. It's Deshaun Foster, no experience as a play caller or a head coach, and they struggled. Now look what happens with what they've done the last 2 weeks. I thought that Scott Barnes really nailed it in terms of, like, you could see how bad he hurt, that it didn't work out too. Because they were trying to. They gave him resources. They had money to go get a quarterback. They did the staff thing, and then he made the changes to make himself the defensive play caller, and Trent Bray and Keith Hayward went back to Cal after the last season. And there's no other way to say it other than, like, it's just a bummer. Like, it was horrible to watch it unfold. And these coaches know the industry. Like, you saw it, whether it was halftime or post-game interviews or just their face on the sideline. Like, they know the deal too. And when you're losing the thing you dreamt of forever, like, you only grip it harder. And I think we saw that. Both Deshaun and Trent will be much better for this experience down the line, because they're both really incredible coaches at their respective area of expertise, whether it be running back, leading that group, whether it be defense and leading that side of the ball. But I hated seeing it, Jim. I'm not going to lie to you, because he fought so hard. And watching that game, I mean, I went to So About That Stat, subscribe to that too, Jim Thornby's newsletter at Substack, and you put the photo up of the three of us last 2 media days, I guess, ago. And it's the three of us on stage, and I'm sitting there like, wow, like, one guy's at Wake Forest, and his team just drilled the other guy's team, and now he's out of a job. Like, it's just nuts when you think of, like, things you couldn't have predicted. So now where does Oregon State go from here? Let's just put a bow on it. It's a tough dance. Like, you can go get a Jimmy Rogers, right? A proven coach at a lower level or at a similar level, right? Like, can you go to a Mountain West and find a successful coach and say, come coach in the Pac-12? Like Dan Mullen maybe is an example. Is Oregon State a better job than UNLV? I would think so. I think there's more resources there. But I also been around Barry Odom enough to know, like, what he did at UNLV launched him to his next job, and it's a big job. Does Dan Mullen land in the Big Ten? Does he land in the SEC? Does he land in a big-time job after the season? I would project he would, just based on his pedigree. And look what he's doing this season. He's got UNLV undefeated with a win over UCLA. So the other side of that coin is, like, do you get, like, a bigger name? And I just go back to the point we had earlier. There's only so many jobs. And what Scott Barnes said in his interview is what Trent Bray has said in many of his interviews with us here. Oregon State has a path to the playoff. And I agree with that. Next year in the Pac-12, it's the best non-Power 4 program, conference. You go 10-2, like, you go win that league, you're going to go. Challenge is now you got to nail this hire, man, because here comes San Diego State. Here comes Fresno State. Tim Skipper, if they don't keep him at UCLA, he's going to get a huge job. Like, here it comes. So it's a pivotal time for the Beavs.
Yeah, and like I said, there's 8 jobs open right now, but those 8 jobs are likely to be filled a heavy percentage, by guys that are already current FBS coaches. So the wheel will just keep turning in that respect. So you just got to keep, like I said, you just got to stay ahead of the musical chairs there.
You know what's interesting is, like, just a quick note on that. So I get asked a lot about North Texas and Texas State, just because of Eric Morris and the ties there. And then, of course, Texas State joining the Pac-12 and their head coach. Those two guys are hot names. in the world. But like, are they going to Oklahoma State or Arkansas? You know, or are they coming to the Pac and to Oregon State? Like it's a really unique year, I think, in that regard of like some of these rock star trendy coaches. Or like, do you go get Ben Arbuckle, right? Or is he saying, no, I want to sit and wait because I'm going to make 2.5, leverage that opportunity into making more money as an OC? Like I always go to Will Stein. I think he's reported like he and Tosh are both making either right around 2 or a little more than 2 million to be coordinators. Like on one hand, that's a hell of a job at Oregon. You can sit tight and wait for the perfect opportunity. Or do you want to the point of 136? Like, do you want to be a head coach so bad? Like you got to go get Tosh Lupo. You got to go get Will Stein. Like, and do they entertain it? Like those are discussions that I think are worthy to have. So go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, because you mentioning Oregon brings up to me, the craziest stat so far of this whole thing is that now of Oregon's 5 wins so far this season, 3 of those head coaches have now since let go. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, Trent at Oregon State, and James Franklin at Penn State. So it's just like, it's crazy. And they won't even play UCLA, which is like the funny part of this whole conference realignment thing this year. So I figured before we go onto the next topic, I just wanted to slide in that Oregon stat there.
Go here, go there, go anywhere with 76.
All right. So we're going to put to bed here the coaching carousel. For Trent, I love him in UAB. I know it didn't work out, but I will say this, and all these guys that are out, the head coaches poured so much into it. And the part that always gets lost, and I hope this part is the part of the interview here that gets a little bit of love on the internet, around 300 people are impacted every time a head coach is fired. So I get it. I don't feel bad for James Franklin in that narrative. He's making $50 million. I get it. It makes sense. But there's a quality control coach making $17,000 and an assistant wide receiver coach making $35,000. And there's many of my friends on the UAB staff that are making less than $100,000 that have multiple kids and just had newborns. Like that part is the real part. And that part is the part that gets no love. And now away we got to go. And not only figure out your life and health insurance come February, but also every coach I've talked to has echoed the same thing, which I love, which is they're like, we're making it about the players. UCLA doing that, focusing on the players. And I'll say this, and we put this on social, to the players of every team whose head coach has been fired, you will remember this season more than any season in your lifetime. You'll remember the season more than any season in your football life. So what will you choose to do? And I will urge you to compete, to connect to your locker mate, to your teammate, to your friends, to people within that organization in an uncommon way. In an uncommon way. It's easy to go look at where can I get another offer? Where can I get DM'd and find my next school? Where can I blame, complain, or deflect? Who wants to hear me blank and moan all day long? Like, don't. Do you have the discipline to compete and throw down to have the most memorable year in your football life? And if you do that, maybe you'll be like UCLA right now because they're on a run. And Tim Skipper, what he is doing, and Jerry Neuheisel and that program and Nico Imaliava, like this team in a vacuum of 2 weeks, Jim, they look like a top third of the Big Ten team right now. It's just facts. So can you do that in Penn State and Happy Valley, in Birmingham, Alabama, in Corvallis, in Stillwater? Like, can you throw the hell down? That's the challenge. Okay. Speaking of throwing down, Indiana threw down. Indiana threw down. If you said they go to Autzen and win the line of scrimmage, I'd say you're out of your mind. And I think Dan Lanning, after the game, when he shook Kurt Cignetti's hand, somebody told me they read his lips and it was like, your team is extremely well coached, a version of that. And I could hear him saying that. Total respect for both staffs. You have to put respect on Indiana's name right now. What did you think watching this one in real time on Saturday?
It was really a domination. I mean, like the score was close. I mean, they outgained them. What was it? 326 to 267. Oregon only had 267 total yards. Their previous low on the season was 373 yards. They only had 186 pass yards. That was their season low. They only had 81 rush yards. That was their season low. That was their previous was twice of that. So it's like they just couldn't get things going. They were 3 of 14 on third down. They only had, 26 minutes and 50 seconds of time possession. Again, the lowest. Like everything you go to, they turned the ball over twice. They only had one turnover the first 5 games. They were sacked 6 times. They only had 1 sack the previous 5 games combined. It was like every stat you can go to. And I don't want to say that Oregon took them lightly because I don't believe, but I think Indiana for a year and a half has had a chip on their shoulder. And even at the end of last year, when it was just like, when they lost at Notre Dame in the playoff, it was like, oh, hey, good season. Like, way to go. And it was like, no, we're going to come back and they're arguably a better team this year than they were last year. They smacked the hell out of Illinois. And now they have this one. I mean, I don't think that, and I'm probably still undervaluing it. I don't think that they're the best team in the country, but if they were the number 1 team in the country in a poll, I wouldn't have an argument against that.
What are they then? If Ohio State's 1, and I'm just going to assume you'd say Miami's 2, are they 3? And they just beat whatever Oregon was. They were 3, right?
Yeah, I mean they have a top 3 resume. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
And it's funny because I think they're still like, oh, all these guys that came with them from James Madison, and like, oh, they brought in Fernando from Cal, and all kind of stuff like that. It's just like, oh yeah, these are all good players. There's not like, but right. These guys balled out. Like that's all there is to it.
So I'm efforting this stat. You may know it and if not, I bet it's in the So About That Stat newsletter that Jim Thornby pens. How many quarterbacks have thrown a pick 6 in the fourth quarter and their team has won the game?
Oh, wow.
I can't think of many. Fernando did it. Dylan Raiola did it in Nebraska. I'm sure others did it around the country. And both of their teams respectively won with Nebraska and Indiana. I say that as like both of those teams got a chance to go on a run here for the playoff. Indiana, folks, I'm calling the Indiana-Purdue game on Friday at Thanksgiving on NBC. I think Indiana's going to be undefeated going into that game. And one of our like kind of like under the radar wishes in college football this year was because I just think like the Big Ten title game is a de facto national title game. Like I think it has that type of competitive temperament. Jim and I were both there last year. I kind of wanted Oregon, if they lost to Penn State, which I thought they would have, then they get a home playoff game and hopefully against Miami and Mario comes back. So like that dream, Jim, is still alive here. But we'll see for the Ducks at Rutgers. Okay. Guy Haberman's calling that one. Wisconsin at home. They're struggling. At Iowa, that'll be a test. Minnesota, well coached, but Oregon's got too much talent. Then USC. And then the game against Washington. And Jed Fish is quietly putting together a hell of a team.
Too quietly.
Yeah.
They should be in the top. They should be in the top 25. No. They're still in the others receiving votes.
That's a joke. That's an absolute embarrassment. I will jump on that train. What are we watching, folks? They have an elite All-American candidate at quarterback, running back, wideout. What are we talking about? Not a top 25 team? What are we talking about? Okay, let's talk about 2 top 25 teams. It's the 20th anniversary of the Bush Push. The Bush Push. South Bend, Indiana. We've got USC, Notre Dame. If you want a little thought on USC, go to yoption.com. The latest newsletter over the weekend. Check it out. To all of our paid subscribers, thank you very much. And for all of those of you that are about to pay, we appreciate that very much. My head immediately went back watching their game against Michigan on my flight home from an East Coast game again this weekend was, oh my God, is SC back? My wife, Amy, our oldest son, Zane, were at the game. It's 6 seats. Thank you, USC, for helping them out. And our son has been to a lot of football games. And I said, what'd you think? And he goes, Dad, this one was different. It was different. And when I watched Lincoln Riley postgame, I believe his quote was, we just we just looked like a hell of a Big Ten team, or that was like a Big Ten win. His point was like, we just won the line of scrimmage against a Michigan team that ran for nearly 300 last time they played a year ago. And they did, Jim. They were balanced. They didn't dominate anything, but they were constantly in command and dictating terms in the game. Jade Mayava, they win at Notre Dame. He's a Heisman candidate, folks. He's playing as well as anybody in America. Like you can't argue that anymore. Mekhi Lemon, I know what Jeremiah Smith is. Mekhi Lemon is a first-round draft pick at wide receiver. This is an offense that is going to be hard to ever be stopped. And the minute you say, well, Illinois, their best player, you could argue on the team, defensively, Kamari Ramsey, food poisoning the day of the game. And it's like losing Caleb Downs at Ohio State. And SC doesn't have the depth that Ohio State has. I just think that they got a chance to take a run here at the playoff. I think there's a chance where the Coliseum is like the Mecca, like Lincoln Riley said at his opening press conference. The place was rocking. If they can go get this done in South Bend, 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 Eastern, NBC, Todd Blackledge, Noah Eagle, here we go. I think the Trojans are kind of back, man.
It's funny because I think Michigan gave them too much headlines, too many headlines during the week leading up to this game. Sharon Moore said, it's going to be sold out because there's going to be so many Michigan fans at the game. Lincoln did not take kindly to that. I can assure you of that. The certain Fox Sports personality who I will rename nameless here, but who's the biased Michigan fan who talked all week about how soft USC was, So,
oh God,
so they,
who cares what he has to say? Yeah.
But so what happened? USC lost their top two running backs in the first half, and they still had 224 rushing yards, the most Michigan has allowed since TCU put 263 on them in that 2022 CFP semifinal. They put 489 total yards on them, the most Michigan has allowed since the 2022 Ohio State game. The defense held Michigan to a season-low 109 rush yards and 3.5 yards per carry. Just for comparison, last year, Michigan had 290 rush yards against USC and 6.3 yards per carry. So, to steal a line from Jed Fish, I think this was personal. Yeah. And they came out. And so now, that was only the third top 15 win for Lincoln since he's come to SC. So now the challenge is be that team every week. Not fall back into the stereotypical impression of what a USC football team has been the last 10 years.
Yeah.
They have to keep that same edge because this Notre Dame team, people are going to complain, oh, Notre Dame, they lose 2 games and they're still ranked. The 2 teams they lost to are both currently in the top 5. And they lost by a combined 4 points. So they are a good football team. And if you look at who they've beaten, Purdue, at Arkansas, Boise State, NC State, all of them by 21 plus points. And the Arkansas game, I was like, oh, maybe that'll be a good challenge for Notre Dame. Because I think that Arkansas, they have a good quarterback, the Boise State transfer. That game was an obliteration. And I was just like, oh wow, Notre Dame, I was a little off on Notre Dame because at the beginning of the year I wasn't really high. I wasn't as high as everybody else on Miami. So when they lost to Miami, I was like, I don't know. But when they put it on Arkansas like that, I was like, oh wow, you don't go into an SEC team and just roll them like that.
Yeah, this is a huge opportunity. This is going to feel like a playoff game. And I'm stealing this from Rhett Lewis, who I'm going to be in the booth with this week, by the way. He's play-by-play, which is going to be so fun.
Nice.
He's been calling some of these games like CFP entrance exam games. And that's what this is. And really for Notre Dame, they have 3 losses. We saw the Alabama argument last year. They had a conference, at least they played in. I think they're out. I really do. And for SC, second loss, granted it might be on the road, but you look at their schedule, they still have to play Oregon. They still have to go to Nebraska. They still have to play UCLA, who's red hot. We know what a rivalry game is. So it's not like when you look at some other schedules around the country, I think they're just going to roll. I think they got a chance to be undefeated. I look at Indiana's rest of the slate. And I'm like, they got a pretty good shot here to kind of, they got Penn State, but Penn State's clearly down. So it's a huge game. It's a huge game. So let me just share a story that I think is fun for USC fans, because I know SC fans are all over YouTube. And thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. 20 years ago, we have the Bush Push game. It's my first year ever coaching. And Jim, as you know, and some of our new listeners may not, I was a huge Notre Dame fan growing up. I mean, like Ron Paulus poster next to my bed, signed, "Dear Yogi, best wishes, Ron Paulus." And every time I see Ron, I have to tell him about it because we grew up in the same neighborhood or same community. Ron was just a legend growing up. Google him if you don't know who Ron Paulus is, folks. Anyway, we go there in my first season as a coach because I don't go to Notre Dame. I go to Pitt. I only go to Pitt because I wanted to go to a school that played Notre Dame the most, because I was so mad that Urban Meyer, and Urban, I've told you this story, chose Roddy Ronimer over me as a wide receiver. So I went to Pitt and ended up playing in the game against Notre Dame a few times. Cut to coaching career, and I joined said program, USC. And I joined year one, and it is hot. Coming off 2 straight national championships. This is Leinart, Reggie Landale, Dwayne Jarrett, Steve Smith, Dominic Byrd, Frosty Rucker, Cedric Ellis, like blah, blah. Here we go. Just Terrell Thomas, like just NFL players everywhere. And Charlie Weiss is hired at Notre Dame. And in Charlie Weiss's first press conference, I believe he said, "We are going to have a decidedly schematic advantage every week because of him." And great line. Sure, the fan base went crazy. I've always felt that when you talk like you're bigger than the game's going to slap you down. Well, Notre Dame was rolling that year. So were the Trojans. We roll into South Bend in this mid-October game, and we come in. And this was the first year ever, and I'm moving left to right here because it was the first time ever buses started to rock. And we pull into our walkthrough on Friday, Jim. There's 10,000 fans waiting for us at a walkthrough. And the buses start to shake, almost off their axis. And it is like, it's not even game day. And I'm like, holy, you know what? It is on right now. We get out. We have our walkthrough. It's amazing. The grass felt like it was 6 inches thick. It was pretty thick, folks. Cut to the game, and it is a back and forth game. It is an elite game. My role that year in year one was to sit next to Lane Kiffin and Rocky Seto up in the booth. And I was the scribe, meaning play would come from Lane to Sark to quarterback. I would hear play, I'd write play, and then I would write the coverage. And then after every drive, I would take that piece of paper and give it to Lane, and then he would review the drive. There was no iPads. There was no helmet-to-helmet communication. This was like eons ago. It's 20 years ago, folks. I cannot believe 20 years ago this moment happens. Cut to the end of the game. And it is our final drive. And you know the play. It goes to 4th and 9. And Lane Kiffin calls trouble right 61 Y option. Folks, there's a reason why this podcast is titled Y option. It's a 4th and 9. The Y is the tight end. It was Dominique Byrd, talented tight end, kind of H-back out of Minneapolis. And his job is to run, like the opening animation of this show, vertically for 10 yards, and then decide, go out, go in, go vertical, sit it down, but get past the sticks. They gave us a certain look where we were going to audible. You see Matt Leinart audible. 82 stay, does this with his hands. He points it out. 82 stay, 82 stay, meaning tight end stay in the protection. It's going to be a max protection, so 5 offensive linemen, tight end, and back, so 7-man protection. And we audible to what is commonly referred to as sluggo win, which is a slant, go, Dwayne Jarrett, to the slot, a seam route, like go win any way possible based on the coverage, a hitch outside from Chris McFoy, Reggie, pass protect, and then leak to the flats. We know we got to get the sticks. 82 stay. I can see Matt Leinart's like eyeballs right now because it was so stoic and like the light was glistening off of this raucous stadium, right? Checks it, audible, gets a snap, slant, go, drops a beautiful dime. The only place like inches away from the corner's fingertips, the centimeters, you could argue, Dwayne Jarrett catches it. As he catches it, I jump up as high as possible because the whole press box does. I punch what was a little like 8-inch TV, smash the TV, not on purpose. Not on purpose. Go, go, go. We are all screaming to score a touchdown. Dwayne Jarrett gets tackled inside the 10. Papers everywhere. Everywhere. It's chaos everywhere. What do you do? How do you do it? Settle back in. Put your headset back on. Lanes to my right. Call him the next play. We get it in. Pete Carroll, stoic on the sideline. We're maniacs. Absolute maniacs. Settle in. One play. Another play. Leinart sneaks it out of bounds. Fumbles out of bounds. Think the game is over. Fans rush the field. The officials say, no, get off the field, Charlie. Get off the field, Brady. Back it up. There's going to be another snap. Cut to the Bush push. Every team has a version of this. And when it's late in the game, when I'm calling a game, my eyes are on the signalers in this instance. Now, I get it. There's helmet-to-helmet communication now, so you don't necessarily have to do it. But at the time at SC, if you'd spike it, you'd go like this. But if we, and so I'm motioning with my hand to the ground, like spike it, spike it, spike it. But if we pointed at you and spiked it, that meant QB sneak it. So Steve Sarkisian is doing the point and the spike to Matt Leinart. Yo, dude, take it. Leinart turns around to Reggie and he's like, yo, let's do this. They break the huddle because remember the clock was stopped because he was out of bounds. It was fumble out of bounds. Gets the line of scrimmage. Bush push happens. You can push, you cannot pull. That is the rule. Not necessarily was the rule then. You couldn't really push then. Semantics. Trojans win. I gather all those papers up, however we did, sprinted as hard and fast down to the locker room. Lane, Rocky, myself, a couple other coaches. It is pandemonium. Like pandemonium. The locker room there is smaller than like a studio apartment. It's tiny. It's terrible. Like lockers are everywhere. It's like a high school basketball locker room. And the celebration was unlike anything I had seen. And the belief in that team in that moment was unlike anything I had seen. The path of us at that moment was unlike anything I had seen. And after that game, I can remember sitting in the locker room and then eventually sitting on the bus, and it wasn't swaying side to side, Jim. It was just the whole team sat there exhausted, but so proud of what we had done. And we didn't even play well. And we went out and won the rest of the games and eventually played Texas in the national championship game.
I guess that long grass that they've probably been growing all year long just out Reggie really didn't help. 195 total yards, 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, and he hurt.
No, I mean that's all gonna get forgotten by the Dwayne Jarrett play and the Bush push. But like was just what a monster game Reggie still had in that moment.
It was a monster. All right, let's be brief here. Rest of the West. Give me a rundown on kind of where you think this league sits at this part of the country sits at the midpoint of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we talked real briefly. The only team that we didn't go in depth on the Big Ten was Washington, and we kind of touched on them briefly. I mean, that game by Damon Williams Jr. on Friday night against Rutgers, he became only the 16th player in FBS history to have 400 and 100. They still have Michigan, they still have Illinois, they still have Oregon on their schedule, as well as UCLA, which we have to mention as a notable on the schedule. But they're 5-1. Their only losses to Ohio State. 4 of the 5 wins by at least 17 points. So they're a team to definitely keep an eye on as this thing goes along. They're in-state rivals there with the Cougs. 3-3, just a heartbreaker of a loss to Ole Miss. Things were going well. There was a targeting penalty that you can, whatever. Every time you see a targeting penalty, if it was on your team, you think of course it's a targeting penalty. If it's against your team, you think it's what are you crazy? That's not a targeting penalty. But like that was like kind of the momentum changer in there. The Cougs kind of need to figure out who they are. I think they figured that out on offense with Zevi. Since they put him as Zevi Eckhouse as the starting quarterback the last 3 games, he's had 2 passing touchdowns each one of those. The defense has kind of been all over the place. In the 3 wins, they've allowed 26 total points. In the 3 losses, they've allowed 142 points. So those 2, that North Texas game, that Washington game, are just out of this planet right now as far as what the rest of this team is. So I think if we can see more of what they did against Ole Miss. Now, granted, they weren't great on 3rd down, 2 of 10, but I think they can be a team that, has a respectable season and starts to build some momentum in that program. You look at the Big 12, the 4 teams in there. Arizona, my dear alma mater, that was just a heartbreaking game.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
they were down 14-0 in the first quarter, come back, score 24 straight points, have a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. That dissolves. They lose in double overtime to a really good BYU team. I mean, credit to that.
I mean, what's up with the quarterback too, Bachmeier? Like, I don't understand the number. Like, guys, it's a bad look. Every quarterback out there.
You know what? I absolutely love it. Like, because he is such a different breed. Like, he was in spring. He's a true freshman, but in spring practice, he was with Stanford.
I know.
He transferred over the summer after the whole Jake Retzlaff thing happened, and he just came there. Him and his brother are both at BYU now. It's hilarious that he wears a 47. He's just like this total, just kind of throwback player. But for Arizona, like, the thing they got to do better is be in the red zone. They're doing good at getting in the red zone, pretty good. 36.4% of their drives they get to the red zone. That's tied for 41st in the FBS. That's not bad. However, once they get there, 3.64 points per red zone drive, 122nd in FBS. They only score a TD on 42.9% of those red zone drives, tied with Stanford for 128th in FBS. That's where they got to get better. Like, that last pass, just right off the fingertips, that probably catchable. I just don't know, like, who their real red zone weapons are. And that's kind of where, like, they're just not, the physicality on that team is not quite there yet. But they already matched their season win total from last year, and they just need 2 more to get to a bowl.
Yeah. Nice job by Brent Brennan, by the way. I mean,
absolutely, you got to.
Yeah, those games at the end.
The other Arizona team, Arizona State, obviously they didn't have Sam Levitt this last week. Hopefully they get him back for this Texas Tech game. Their next 3 weeks, Texas Tech, Houston, Iowa State, combined 16-3. The last 3 games, West Virginia, Colorado, Arizona, combined 9-10. So this is a key stretch here, these next 3 games. Pick up a couple wins, and they're in good shape going forward. Colorado had a nice win over an Iowa State team that's really struggling with injuries. Caden Salter probably played the best he's played all year. It was the first game this year that Colorado didn't allow a sack. Utah, like we said, the other half of that Arizona State game, their offense has been great this year. They've rushed for 240 yards in 5 of the 6 games this year. They only did that once last year. They almost have as many points this year in 6 games as they had in 12 games last year. So the change in OC and the change in quarterback has really been a thing. They got BYU this week. First time both schools are ranked in this game since 2009, only the 4th time ever. So that's going to be a huge one. Cal had a bye week. They're still kind of a hit and miss team all the time. They're 4-2, which is a good thing, but they've lost 2 and 3 since that 3-0 start. Jaron Sagapolatele, who's been the talk of college football early on, in the 4 wins, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. In the 2 losses, 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions. So he's a true freshman. They're going to make mistakes, but they got to do better around him. And then lastly, as I speed through all of our West Coast teams here, Stanford, 2-4, the last 3 losses, all by 24 or more points. The good news, though, they just did get a $50 million donation by one of their former alums. So I know this is not this is an interim year with an interim coach, another team that we'll be talking about, who's going to be their head coach. But their next 2 games, Florida State and then at Miami. So it doesn't get any easier for the Card.
What's interesting is that $50 million donation, A, amazing. B, like, is it a lot of money? Yes. Is it enough money? I don't know. But it has made that job even more appealing in the coaching circles that I'm rolling in. So I am so curious to see where Andrew Luck nets out, because there's a world where I don't know if you're going to go win the ACC, but to me, for Cal and Stanford, your job is to position yourselves to be the most competitive and most attractive year in and year out, but specifically for when potentially a next wave of realignment happens. Now, by the time this podcast airs, the Big Ten might be locked for the next 20 years if private equity ends up going through, which, that's a conversation for another time. But I just say that for them, like it's a good thing for Stanford. Like, that's a huge win. It's a huge win for you with where you sit now and how coaches are viewing the 8 current jobs that are open. and available. And then I think it's notable, Jim, to talk about the CFP. We're a couple weeks out from the first reveal show, if you will. Remember, the way the CFP works, like the top group of 5 teams going to get in. UNLV undefeated. San Diego State, Sean Lewis, shout out, man. Like heading to the pack next year. Boise State, same deal. The loss to South Florida and Notre Dame. Those are bad losses, but those two play each other. UNLV and Boise State play each other this weekend, so that will be a pseudo elimination game. But you want to be in the best position for the title game. We'll see how that shakes.
Because right now you got those 3 teams in the Mountain West, and you got those 3 teams in the American, and Navy, Memphis, and South Florida. So it's really between those 6 teams that are going to get that 12th seed in the CFP when you look at things now, because the Sun Belt is not going to have a team make it. The MAC is not going to have a team make it. The Pac-12, they don't have a champion, so that they can't have an eligibility for that until next year. A Pac-12 team, if they're going to make it, would have to be an at-large, which obviously will be a more than uphill climb at this point. But it'll be down to those 6 teams, I think, fighting out for that last spot.
Isn't that amazing? Like, I'll leave us with this. Number one, it was fun to do this. It's a cool little recap. So appreciate your time, Jim, and all the viewers and listeners. Let us know what you think about it in the comments on YouTube here. But I would say that with where we sit in college football today and right now around the CFP, I am loving more and more and more the idea of each conference, at least the bigger conferences, call it like the top 2 conferences, the Big Ten, the SEC, of creating pseudo play-in games to make it easier on the committee. Because I look at like the Big Ten now, and okay, Ohio State's the best team to me, I think, in America, and I think it's a tick above everybody. I get it, Illinois, Texas at home in the opener, Texas isn't, whatever, but like I think they're that good. And then in the Big Ten, you go Indiana 2. Oregon 3, like you can start having these debates. Like I think it'd be really cool to have like final championship Saturday or Friday games where you're slotting your 3, 4, 5, 6 seeds to a certain degree. And I get what that means for the 3 seed that loses to a 6 seed. But I love that. It just helps you out to play the games because it's so competitive. Like outside of a few teams, and you could argue maybe just one team at the top, what separates everybody? Like it feels like the NFL every Saturday. It's been really fun in that regard. So it's only going to give you more money. It's only going to create better TV inventory. Like I really like that idea. I don't necessarily love the idea of like locking in X amount of spots per conference, but I love the idea of play-in games, of seeding at the end of the season within a conference. I think it's just a really cool concept. We'll see how that shakes out. Okay. I am off to another game in the Midwest and another game in a stadium I've never been to, Jim. I'm going to Northwestern. Can't wait. This is going to be a very unique experience. They play in a stadium that is on a lake, that is a makeshift stadium, and I'm hoping we get like one more weekend of sunshine in the Midwest because I don't want that wind, that the lake effect wind or rain, and we don't want any of that. It's sold out. It's family weekend. They're hosting Purdue. Purdue reminds you of your Arizona team in year one with Jetfish. So many tight games, but just so many self-inflicted negatives. A late turnover, a pick six, a bad penalty, but they've been in games against Illinois and Minnesota. So I hope we get another one. And you got Northwestern coming off, you could argue, the greatest win since the year they went on the run to go to the Rose Bowl. I'd argue that. I mean, to win at Penn State with what they did, and they're going to be the ones known for that's the game that got James Franklin fired. I mean, what a moment for David Braun, who you would have thought after their opener at Tulane, like, yeah, I don't know, maybe that's going to be one of the 8 schools that makes a change. They don't. The best part, though, is Mark Jackson, the athletic director. He's been on this podcast. Go listen to it. It's our first episode in our limited series called The Process. He's the AD at Northwestern. He is a dear friend. Great stories. I'll make sure we have some fellowship with him on Thursday and Friday night. So keep a lock on the Y Option Social. Jim, we got a lot moving here at Y Option. I'm always appreciative of your lean-in factor. I don't know how you do it all. Go check out his newsletter because it's out of all the ones that I get, He's the only one I read from top to bottom. No offense to everybody else. Check it out. We'll plug it in our show notes as well. Make sure we're recommending all those things at Substack. And to all of you, thank you. And thank you to 76, our founding sponsor, fueling this show and fueling this platform, keeping you on the go so you never miss a beat. Jim, you got anything left?
No, I mean, I'm excited for you. It'll be your first and likely last time to go see Northwestern at this stadium because next year they get the new park. So, enjoy it.
I love it. All right, brother. Talk to you soon, man. Lots of love. Thanks to everybody and appreciate all of your support. Peace.